I like to look at this from an architect's standpoint when analyzing Richard. He is the architect, so you know, looking at it from those dynamics, like, okay, I want to bring in a lot of people into Pulsechain. So look at Pdai. Let's say that he's totally not involved with Pdai at all. Once it gets to a certain level and it's gotten to that level where there's a tension, does he take advantage of it? So you can kind of go down that, talking point.
Yeah, what do you mean exactly? Like Pdai has grown too big to ignore for him? Is that what you mean?
Well, okay. Well, you have to, I mean, basically, we're taking some logical decision points here. Is he involved? Is he not involved? Well, if he's not involved, let's make a decision point here. Would he get involved with it because of the liquidity pairing? Would he get involved because it brings people on? So make that decision point first, because I'm looking at it from an architect standpoint. Do you think that he would get involved with it because of the liquidity pairing? Do you think he would get involved with it if he didn't have anything to do with it and it just built up on its own like lots of meme coins do? What is your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't know. Like for me, I love the room that he leaves for speculation in the case that he is behind it and he's not saying it, because speculation is basically the best gift that crypto has given us, right? And in the example I gave before about good texture and what happened with this hex influencer, that he started to shill this other token, and Richard could see on chain that hexicans were selling their hex bags and going into this shitcoin basically that went to zero, is that it prompted him to make like a huge fuss about it, like emergency stream where he was super emotional and all of this. So I know Richard's character. I know that if that were to happen again on a big scale, which is basically what's happening with Pdai, right? Then it would be very strange for him not to at least clarify the situation a little bit, to say that like he doesn't even have to reference Pdai directly. Usually, how he calls out scams, he never gives the ticker or a screenshot or anything. He just implies something, and he does it in a way that everybody who reads the tweets knows what he's talking about. But the people who don't know what he's talking about, they don't know what he means. So Richard is really, really good in that way, that he can talk about something without explicitly telling what he's talking about. And so far, he has not done that with Pdai. On the
Okay, so
contrary, he has actually semi-shilled Pdai, I think, 4 times. So, and again, we talked about this before. I think like now we're like 500 listeners here, but like when we were like 20 people in here, we gave the example that wouldn't it be very, very strange for Richard to basically shill this coin for 4 times in a row with screenshots, bragging about it essentially, then wait all this time for people to accumulate, to start pitching it, to start talking about it. We have a space here with 500 people. He waits all this time basically to set a huge trap and then say like, yo, this is a scam. It would be the strangest, most uncharacteristic move, in my opinion, for him to do. So that's why I really doubt
okay.
that.
Well, let's address that issue first about him warning about coins and things like that. So there's lots of things that he is not warned about, and people had to learn their lessons. And so we can't take Richard as the one that's going to warn about everything and figure out everything from his tweets and things like that. Yes, he does give information. Yes, he does help kind of guide things. But it sounds like we've went ahead, at least you have, the logical choice that, okay, he's probably have some kind of interaction with this Pdai kind of narrative. Now, you move to the next logical kind of decision point here for me, because I like to look at this from an architect's standpoint. So if you're an architect and you're saying, oh, I want to bring people on the chain, I want to make this happen, what are the risks? People coming over and dumping, or hey, I have a bunch of people that bought a lot of Pdai in the beginning and they could dump. So those are the major like dynamics that you have to have some kind of answer for you as an architect. How am I going to do this? And so I think that's the biggest focus is how he's going to deal with it. And he spoke about people coming in and dumping. So he has a plan. We have to go through all of his videos, or someone here in the chat needs to help us remember what is his plan when people come over. If he's advertising, come over and get your free money, how does he deal with that? Could it be as simple as him just buying? Because basically, you want big whales to come over, get their money, take advantage of this stupid Richard for giving me free money. I'm going to come over here and get it. Once he spots those certain whales coming out that he knows wants to do damage, he just buys it up himself. So it's a way of putting liquidity into those things that he's supporting. So what are your thoughts on how he's going to deal with people dumping to get value out of it? And what has he said in the past?
Before you reply, the big issue that I hear in this space has been there's a lot of projects, and the idea is that this is a L1. And yes, Richard has in the past said we don't need to have anything else. We can just have these tickers. Like he preferred people just buy his tickers. He said that, but I don't remember. I can't recall any project that said I am Richard, or this is Richard, or here's the on the chain, or here. I got a telegram message from Richard that said I'm launching this thing. And I think that that would be so offensive. So like, it's not the issue that, there's been a lot of uh, people that arrive and then disappear, Mike the Painter and all this other kind of crap. But it is that, Mike the Painter never said, look here, it's Richard. Like, that's a different level.
Okay, so I just want to bring up the one thing that I still would stand by is that when the fixer bot came in and adjusted all those pairs, it did make him the largest market maker in those V2 pairs. So I think that's enough to say I'm not going to shill it, but I'm also not going to shit on it.
And I understand what Gary is saying, but I'm only going through a thought experiment here to understand from an architect's perspective, how do you deal with these things? Once you understand how do you deal with these things, then you get to a point of saying, okay, well, that is okay, because that's one of the big detractors is people saying, oh, people are just going to dump and it's going to wreck this whole thing. So, well, how do you deal with that from an architect standpoint if he is involved with it? And then the other point is that remember, Hex was an experiment. Pulsechain was an experiment. All these things are experiments. So you put out little bits of info, or you do things to kind of see how people react and how they participate. So if you're an architect, you've got to do these things over a long period of time and work on things. And you don't want to be involved with an experiment if it's not going to work, if there's no traction, if there's nothing fits together. So, he can set up things as an experiment and, back out of it if it's not going to work.
Yeah, but architects have reputation because they have credential, they went to school, or they're part of a firm and they sign off on those final documents that get built. It's not the same thing. I understand the architect analogy, but like there's a difference between brand. Like, don't you sign your documents whenever you turn in your work, whether it's to a firm or to an individual that contracts and builds it?
Right. But okay, so here's another aspect that's really, really important that really affects this whole dynamic, and that is our enemies. So the Ethereum brothers, or you can say the Ethereum builders and architects, which is basically JP Morgan, the fiat bankers, and now governments intertwined with it. So so to be able to defend Pulsechain, we have IPFS, we have all these ways of decentralizing the websites, all this stuff to make sure that, we can continue on through all this. We have legal attacks, all these different things, but Pulsechain's going to continue moving on. So what does, from an architect standpoint, you have to create things like, for instance, a stablecoin is the greatest threat to the ETH brothers, to these fiat bankers, because that's how they control things with these fake stable coins. You have USDC, you have Tether, and they control all the markets through those stable coins. So to be able to create a stable coin that is without their control, in other words, you have a Pdai that has USDC and all these, they still have their control in there. So to be able to create a stable coin for Pulsechain is a very difficult and careful process that has to, you basically have to get your enemies to say, that's not it, no big deal, let's get away from that or whatever, and make it look like a scam. Remember, he made Hex look like a scam to get all the VC money and all the other people, whales that would want to come in there and pump and dump out of there. So I think that's a really critical point of how you make sure that you move this thing forward and not have your enemies take over.
Very expensive experiment. I think that was the word that was used, or something like that. You know, quite a expensive experiment. But look, I mean, Richard's not kind of, he's not thrown it out. And I think if I'm just going from a perspective of if I was the individual, what I would be doing, I think and there's going to be a lot of guys in the chat. It's like 10 million D chess to throw out EHEX. I think it was a mistake. I think it was a marketing mistake that was done. And I think that he wouldn't do so with Pdai. You're not going to see a tweet where this is a load of trash because there's so many people that have already invested and are starting to believe the narrative. And as a result, if the upside potential, the benefit to him is way, way higher if it does hit $1. So I'll just chuck that in the ring today.
But there's a difference, right? Because when he tweets about Hex versus if he tweets about Pdai, especially like if he would say that he's not involved in it, he doesn't have any reputation risk with Pdai, whereas he does have reputation risk with Hex. So him flooding Hex and him flooding Pdai is not really the same thing because he has nothing really to lose with Pdai, which is kind of interesting, right? Because like he would rather flood his own coin rather than say to people like, yeah, I'm not behind Pdai, dump that shit, buy my coins. And so far, he has not done that, but he has flooded his own coin.
Okay, so a lot of people misinterpret that. He was just directing people to the proper side to get some movement and capital over there and liquidity. And also to get
No,
people away
that's
from.
bollocks, Gabriel. I'm going to jump in. That's bollocks.
Yeah,
And the reason
please
why
do.
is, I'll tell you why, is because before Pulsechain had even launched, the idea of a one-to-one copy, or like I think there was even on stream talking about a $1 hex on both sides, was something that had been proposed by Richard. So, and again, if you were doing that, why wouldn't you do it from the start? Like, why wouldn't you do it from the very beginning of Pulsechain, right? Like, why allow people to speculate in that period of time before sending that tweet out? Why would? Because there were a lot of people that were buying up the cheaper side and then playing the kind of ratio games and stuff, and they just believed, hey, this is always going to be 1-to-1. It's going to be, we're not going to get a ETH classic versus ETH type situation where you have, the ratios are like 138 or something ridiculous, ETH classics to 1 ETH. And, he had said that multiple times on stream. He had said that. That's why lots of people bought into EHEX immediately. Like, even they saw it as cheaper. People were going over across towards the PHEX side, and they're like, "Well, okay, I'm going to buy that up because it's cheaper." Especially the smaller fish as well. A lot of the smaller fish were like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense." It's all going to come 1-to-1. Now, I think sending it out when it happened, and again, I'm a Richard Hart Maxi guy, right? Like, I'm into Richard. I've been in this ecosystem for a long period of time. I make videos on it. But the point of the matter is that was done at the wrong time, and it really affected a lot of people. It affected a lot of people's backs, and people sold that dip as well to try and get out because they thought that was going to be almost like the similar experience of a rug pull. Because if you remember when that tweet came out, that price shot right down, and so the fear came into the market, and that particular product got destroyed basically in the space of 30-40 minutes.
Okay, but remember, you're trying to sum everything up together, and I don't think you're giving enough attention to the timing. There are purposes for different things at different times. There was a time for him to be a hex maxi. There was a time for him to then move things over. There's a time for him to talk about ink. There's a time for these different things, and it's all dynamic. You have to have flow, capital flow, and don't you think an architect has to push and
He's not
move.
an architect. It's not architecture. Let me just go back. It's not. It's crypto. It's not architecture. It's. See what I'm
Okay,
saying? It's not.
okay,
It's
well
not
then,
architecture, bruv.
how do you build something? You have to architect it. You make decisions about how you're building something. This is a most intensive architecture project to have all these connections and all these points and liquidity. Farming. I mean, this is. I can't think of a more complicated architecture project than this one. So I don't know why you're going against the term architect. I mean, we can
Because
call
it's not
something else.
architecture. It's not architecture. Like Gary had said previously, right? Architects have a certain reputation to uphold in order for a project to be built, right? If we're talking about, and I'm not an architect, and I know you are an architect, but you don't go and go, okay, we started building this project up. We've actually built this, let's say it's a, I don't know, 200-story freaking building, and we've done really well on it. We had some problems with some damage, water damage, and we're just going to destroy the building. That's not how you work it. You
Yeah,
know,
I was
if we're
gonna
using
add
the
to that as
analogy with that.
well. I was gonna add to that as well. Like, listen, an architect ain't coming to build a house and tell you no expectations. Like just
No expectations of a stable structure.
can you imagine that?
No expectations of water not getting in through the roof.
Question for anybody. I just kind of wanted to piggyback off what K9 Kong was saying before. Just for anybody who doesn't believe it, why do you guys think like he would stay silent all this time? Because Pdai didn't just happen right now. People have been saying this since like the inception. You know what I'm saying, of Post Chain. Why would he just like kind of sit on the side and let everyone build it up to $1 billion if he had nothing to do with it? Just for the people who don't think this is true.
The reason for
I think
that is
it's pretty simple.
probably because he doesn't want to shill it. Like
It's the
even when
same.
you
It's the same response that we've been giving, or at least that I've
But
been
he
giving.
has but he has shilled it though. He's posted it on his own
Yeah, but
Twitter
that's
like
not brother,
no, no,
brother.
the point-
Pause, brother. That's
four
not shilling.
times.
That's not shilling, brother.
It's
Pause for a
soft
second, bro.
it's a
Take a deep
soft
it's a
breath. One
soft
shell.
sec.
shill.
It's not a
It's a
shill,
soft
bro.
shill.
He's saying for people to come and take their coins. No, he's
I'm
telling
not talking
people.
about that. I'm not talking about that. Bro, like you gotta look at it from both sides of the coin, right? So yeah, he's telling people from Ethereum to come get their coins, but he could have used any coin for that, bro. Instead he posted Pdai, and then at the end of the post he's like, I wonder if this one will reach parity. He's hinting at what he's doing. He wouldn't post it for any other reason, bro. Like he could have used any coin from Ethereum.
He
Why did
also
he
said
choose?
that PWBTC is going to be more volatile than Bitcoin, which technically means that
Right, because it
PWBTC should be at
is.
150K.
Because it is. It has a
Yeah,
much smaller supply, bro. It has like a couple 100,000 versus
No, it's
Bitcoin with 21.
156,000.
Yeah.
But supply is irrelevant, right? Because the only thing that matters is distribution. And you're talking about a coin which was the most well distributed coin on Ethereum that has a contract that you can control and shut off. And his fixer bot made a pair for it. So it's like, why would he disown it? He gets to market make the thing with zero risk, as well as be the largest holder of it,
Well,
and
he
he
did
assumes
FUD
all of the power.
PWBTC.
How did he do that?
I'm talking about Pdai. I'm saying like
He didn't
he
FUD it.
has.
His tweet was, people think that this is the real BTC. Here's the contract address. Here is the chain's fork copy. And that's I think specifically he gave all the contract addresses for the things that might be confusing that ended up in the farm at one point. I don't know that he put the contract address for P Pepe, but he put the contract address for the Pulse chain version of wrapped things that were brought across versus the things that were forked in there.
And in doing so, every time he would say this, he would always say, like, oh, it would be funny if this reached parity. He said it in videos too, like, oh, it would be funny if BTC on Pulse Chain reached parity with regular BTC. Like, bro, he's not hinting and saying these. It would be funny for no reason, bro. Like, he has a plan. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is my perspective, at least, on it. Like, it would be retarded for him to be posting things that he doesn't want people to be active in, bro. Like that makes no sense. Like at least
But,
to me.
but listen, bro. if your selling point of your entire chain is come get your free forked money, and you don't want to be the guy who's providing the exit liquidity to those people, don't you think you would want to get a bunch of useful idiots to be the exit liquidity for the free money to onboard all the new users in a pulse chain? Because that's exactly how I see it.
Do you
I
think that
mean,
Richard's in it for the useful idiots?
right. That's what I was gonna say. I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, bro, like there's a bigger picture, no?
I mean, I think that it's the biggest onboarding tool you can possibly imagine. Why not try to outsource it?
Yeah, Richard. If there's one thing that I know about Richard Hart, it's he's a type. Like I know people that went to dinner with him, and he
And I
didn't
think the
even
actions
pay.
of Richard speak
He
to
didn't
that.
even pay.
Or I should say, the inaction of Richard speaks to that. It's like I can't kill the thing, but I also don't want to promote the thing. So I'm going to let these guys speculate on this thing, and now their liquidity is now shared with every other person on Ethereum who held Dai at that moment.
That part I understand, but it's like at the same time, there's a huge risk in allowing people to believe something like this, bro. Or if it's not him, allowing someone else to just come in and like orchestrate something like this using his name, trying to, connect all these dots and stuff. Like, bro, this is something that like uh I know B Roots was talking about this earlier, like his legal status right now, bro. This could fuck him up. You know what I mean? I don't think he would let something like this stand, bro. It's just too big to me. And it started extremely small. Like, bro, I bought my first bag of Pdai for like $35 for like a couple million, and I fumbled it listening to people who were telling me it was gonna be a scam, bro. And like, I'll never get that bag back. You know what I'm saying? That shit is long gone, bro. But at the same time, like, you gotta understand, like, this thing started from nothing. He could have called it off from day one, bro. But instead, he's not saying anything about it. Instead, he posted the chart like 3 times, 4 times on his Twitter. Instead, he's saying, teasing about parody. I think, bro, that there's a bigger picture here, and it's not just about letting people come from Ethereum and use people for exit liquidity. I don't think it's that simple,
But
personally.
isn't that just the idea of crypto? It is speculation. Like in the same way that people say that Hex could, outperform Bitcoin on a long term scale. And like I remember that was the narrative coming into Hex, was like it was outperforming ETH and also BTC, and it's likely that it will probably do so. It's on that trajectory, right? And that's just speculation. That's something that was said multiple different times, and that's just speculation. I think the nature of kind of PDI is that it is just speculation, and there's no definitive statement made by Richard, but it's just like, okay, let's see if this happens. Let's see if this works out. Let's see if the community can, like any coin, community can take over something and make it move to the right direction. Community can make it happen, and we're seeing it. Right? I mean, the reality is we're at 3 cents now for PDI. Who knows? Maybe we see 10 cents. Maybe we see 50 cents. Even if it doesn't make it to $1, that's still performed incredibly and brought a lot of people on chain.
100%. I definitely agree with that. But then there's also the other side of it, of like where you're looking at people who raided Aave, took over MakerDAO, like did all of these different things on the chain. I feel like personally that is something that could end up being detrimental if it's a malicious actor, right? Because this person can just kind of orchestrate this entire movement to generate all this capital for themselves and then use that capital for whatever they want, and it could end up being very bad. So that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like in the beginning, when these things first came out, when this knowledge was first being spread, obviously he knew. There's no way he's not looking at what's happening on chain. So I feel like if there was something malicious going on, he would have called this way before we got to $1 billion, bro. Like, we're at $1 billion on PDI. Like, it's not like we're at 5 million or some shit, bro. Like, this is $1 billion we're talking about, right? So I don't know. I personally, it's not something that's that small to me personally. Like, I think there's something else going on behind the scenes, like, and maybe he can't speak about it right now due to his current situation, SEC case, people looking at him for sack money reasons, whatever people are saying, you know what I mean? So maybe he's waiting. Maybe he can't say anything right now. And then also you got to think about creating the first decentralized stablecoin is a pretty big task. It's a pretty big feat. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to imagine that there would be people trying to come after you for something like this. You know what I'm saying? So there's a few reasons why he can't confirm that it's him, but at the same time, he could have easily said that it's not him on like day 30 or day 20. You know what I'm saying? Like whenever people were seeing what was going on with Ave, Maker, Pdai, like he could have called it off from the beginning, but he never did.
Yeah, I agree with some of those statements. The only thing I would touch on is you've mentioned multiple times that he would legally get in trouble. But I think of someone like, just to use a different reference, like Justin Sun and Tron. And Justin Sun, remember when Tron was really kicking off, right, with all the their pump fund equivalent? He posted his image. He changed his profile pic to one of the memes. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. Someone in chat will probably know. I think it was Sun Wukong. Yeah,
Wukong.
and so so by doing that, they kind of confirmed that that was like a viable meme on his particular chain. Did that get him into legal trouble? I don't think so. He just encouraged, what the community had kind of moved forward and what had performed well.
All right, that's all. I just wanted to ask, like, whoever, I don't know. I heard a couple points and stuff, but I just kind of don't really agree with any of like the naysayers. No one's like really pitched a good enough reason for this to not be him. For me to believe that it's not him. You know what I mean? Because the biggest thing is that I've watched him go on the timeline on Twitter and call out multiple different things. I've watched him go on stream, call out multiple different things, but this on his own chain hit $1 billion and he never said anything. So I don't, me personally,
Can I
like
ask you
I
one
don't.
question though? This is one thing I'm going to
What's
ask. Okay, it's a little bit cheeky, but how many
what's up,
units have you got? Because you're shilling it hard, which is
bro?
good.
I told you, nah. I'm not even chilling, and I'm gonna be completely honest right now, bro.
I'm
Like I
messing with
said,
you, man. I'm joking around.
no, it's fine, it's fine. But I'm just gonna answer you honestly. But I had a bag at $35. I spent for like a couple million PDI, bro, like a long time ago. And I listened to a couple maxis. I'm not gonna name anybody, but I listened to a couple maxis, hex maxis, and other coin maxis who were quote unquote trying to keep me safe. And bro, I sold my bag and went elsewhere with my $35. And I probably lost it on something else. But that bag that I sold, I'll never get it back, bro. I had so much PDI, and right now that shit is up so high, bro. I'll never be able to buy it back. So it's just like, you
Brother,
know.
that's why you should always do your own research. I'm not saying, look, for one, it was a $35 bag, which could have potentially been a lot more right now, right? I had the same sort of, not the same, like, I mean, I did keep a moon bag, but I had the same sort of thing happen as well, right? So it's a relatable story, bro. But it all just comes down to us always making our own decisions and not letting a hexagon make the decisions for us. Because currently hexagons, not even in a rude way, but yeah, they're just hexagons and they're hex mad. And listening to them could get you wrecked. Like I mean, a lot of hexagons will tell you don't trade nothing, don't trade on the chain, don't just hold Richard Hart core coins only. And if you done that, you'd still be down currently if you didn't go and degen and make your own bags. So it's always better to like not listen to people.
I just want to bring up real quick about Pdai that the idea of collateralizing Pdai with Pulse basically means that anyone holding Pulse is distributing value now to anyone holding Pdai, and this is like my main point of contention here is if you think a peg is possible, then like you can speculate on Pdai all you want, but if you think a peg is possible, it would have to mean that Richard Hart is literally going to hand all of Pulse Chain's value to Pdai holders, and then the Pdai holders' response to that's always, oh well, where do you think they're going to put it? They're not going to bridge it out. They're going to buy their favorite hex coin or whatever. They're going to buy their favorite Richard Hart ticker, and it's just not true.
But he can buy his own tickers with his own PDI that he mints.
But brother, come on, I could really tear this one down if you want.
Nah, I mean, bro, think about it. Like other people
Right,
who
but
say
let,
like the PDI
let
narrative isn't
talk on
true,
it real
they
quick.
say that he's gonna pump the chain with his own coins,
Yeah,
like which that would be being exit liquidity regardless. So it's like which side of exit liquidity are you picking, bro?
You're
Like,
gonna
I
pick your
mean,
own
either
core
way,
coins as exit liquidity, or you're gonna pick just Pdai maxis as exit liquidity. That's what exit
but Peter,
liquidity.
but the thing about making Pdai the chosen stable of the chain is that it puts it in position to bring everything else up.
But that's what
So
I'm trying
like,
to tell
regardless of
you.
the flow,
We're in a closed system.
regardless of the flow, but hold on, regardless of the flow where people choose to go, it's still pumping the chain, and it's still gonna find its way back to the cores anyway. Like everything on the chain is gonna go up
No, no,
regardless.
I
So
believe
I mean, that's just
there
how
was
I
a guy
see
last
it.
night who bridged in $1.4 million, and he bought just Pdai with it. And that brings everything up, right? My argument is this: Richard Hart wouldn't to be able to collateralize Pdai and then use his Pdai to pump his cores, which would pump the underlying collateral against the Pdai that he has borrowed against it. But the argument is that then when anyone goes to exit, now his position is under collateralized, and it won't be able to maintain a peg with the level of volume that would be capable of to be pushed through Pdai. So if Pdai is $1, the number of units that exist on the open market exceed the number that would be needed to over collateralize it at a ratio of like 400% in order to make sure that it stays pegged anyway. And the second it depegs, you have a cascade because the underlying collateral is then being devalued against the dollar itself or against the DAI itself. So it literally cascades on itself. And then the other primary issue is that the Oracle believes that Pulse is ETH still. I haven't seen anyone bring this up. Like the Oracle believes that one Pulse is worth like $2,500 or some shit. Like, who's gonna fix the Oracle?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, bro. But this is all the stuff that is quote unquote being worked on, right? So I mean, like fixing the Oracle and like figuring out the a plan that works for maintaining peg and stuff like that. It's all like a work in progress, right? It's an experiment, like someone else said earlier. But I don't think it's not him because like he said, "Oh, I have a few tricks up my sleeve for a decentralized stablecoin and shit like that" on a couple different videos, man. Like I've heard that I've heard him say it himself. So it's like, yeah, all right, cool. So layer one of like just MakerDAO collateral vaults, like that might not be enough to sustain something like what we're talking about. But okay, it could get deeper. There could be other things going on that we don't necessarily know about right now. But my point still stands, like as far as me believing that it's him, because like I just think, bro, he would have called this off a long time ago, like way before we got to where we are now. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, speculation is fun. It's cool, like to let people speculate, but like not when it's something this big, bro. Something this big is not like just something you kind of just like let fly. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to understand uh, an aspect of investing or just the history of things is there's certain types of people in life. There's people that make things happen. There's people that watch things happen, and then there's people that wonder what happened. And I mean, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, a good stable coin, and Richard hasn't shut it down. So you know, don't do your own research, but don't take any one influencer's advice.
I would add to that and say I welcome I I I'm pretty on top of chain shit, and I welcome anyone to try to disseminate what's actually going on in the maker contracts right now. So when people say do your own research, it throws up a warning light, because I personally know guys who can do decent chain analysis who would not be able to figure out even 1 second of what's going on in these maker contracts. It's so convoluted and none of them are verified. So you have to go manually verify them. And then you have to read these functions. I'm going in manually reading all of these functions to see who's owning what functions are calling who, what contracts. And I'm sorry, there's the average crypto person, even I would argue the top, you know, even moderate to experienced crypto person is not going to figure out what is going on the chain unless they understand Solidity. And that's the part that worries me, is when people are saying it's Richard Hart. And I'm just like, it's impossible to know if it is or not, but it looks like just the fact that it's being claimed that it is through wallets that have big Pdai bags that are selling, that it's probably not.
To that, I'd say fair enough. Ultimately, what it comes down to is personal accountability. I mean, I'm 100% backer of core Richard Hart products. So this is merely just something that is transpiring to the timeline going into 2025.
No, I agree. I agree. If people, want to speculate on that, and I think that's great. They should be able to do so, and I believe that Richard believes that as well. I think that's why he definitely has a account that fixed these pools that is holding a massive liquidity pool, and he hasn't pulled it. He's never messed with it. He just has a V2 pool that's providing liquidity for you guys to move in and out of Pdai whenever you want, and I think that's good.
And the other thing I wanted to say, before I get off the stage, is yo, we kind of gotta let people speculate, man. We gotta let people, have their own fun, throw their own party.
What I think is making this conversation different from all other crypto coin discussions or spaces is that, I mean, when we talk about this stuff, it sounds more like we're debating whether God is real or not. It's like, oh, is Richard behind this? Like, yeah, he could be, but yeah, you just have to believe, dude. Like, yeah, the signs are there, but you can't like prove it technically. It sounds exactly like kind of like atheist versus religious guys like competing against like, okay, what is reality actually about, right? And so imagine, so if you want your crypto to be like a religion, what is Pdai? It's a religion, man. We're basically debating on whether Richard is the god or if this is just like a natural occurrence that this chart is doing what it's doing. This is the speculation that is making a crypto into a religion. Because listen to the words that you're using, man. We're talking about Richard as if he's a god. This is exactly what you want to have in your asset that you're in. It sounds it's if you just remove the Pdai words and stuff and replace it with like apostles and like religious words, it's the exact same conversation.
No, I mean, I agree, I think it was silly. So I think it's silly to frame it that way, in to a degree, right? Because we're talking about speculating on making money on imaginary internet money, but at the same time,
Exactly.
it definitely, like, you could see the similarities, but I don't know. Like I said, I think everyone should speculate if they want to speculate, if they want to believe. Believers are rewarded sometimes. Sometimes believers are, they drink the Kool-Aid. you know.
Yeah, I
I have a
mean,
technical
I don't
question.
think I don't think it's silly. I think it's a good analogy. It's basically the same conversation. So I mean, people care about. It seems that people spend at least as much time care about their money and finances as they care about like God and stuff. If I mean, how long have you guys been in this spaces? A long time, right? So both very important topics, and I think they're comparable. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Gary, go on.
If you go to gopulse.com/coins, it's one of the things at the top, and it'll give like the list of all the things that have some kind of value. You can organize the column for age, and make the oldest at the top. So the oldest things that I assume the chain existed for 2 days. I've heard that it existed for 2 days before people knew what it existed, when the AMM was doing, or whatever, the bot was doing all its crap, and some of these things were originating. So Pulsex, Inc., Hex, they all have the same. I mean, they're the oldest on this chain, but also the oldest at the same age is Pulse Wrapped BTC, Pulse USDC. Pulse Maker is the next one that's ranked. I don't think this thing is alphabetical, but it's ranked, so it must be like block timestamp that's organizing this. And that's the number 6 oldest P maker. And then there's USDT, PaxG, and so forth, SHIB, and so forth that go down the rank as far as like what's younger. Why? Can anybody technically answer why P maker is the same age, but Pdai is 555 days? So there's a 20-day difference on the age. Is this just a way that GoPulse is organizing stuff? But if they're pulling from the blockchain, I would assume that they're pulling from the oldest timestamps. Does anybody know that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they organize the data. You're saying on GoPulse?
Yeah, there's a at the tab organization thing at the very top, GoPulse. So it's gopulse.com/coins. But if you're trying to look at that, it would be the third column, whatever, and you can go to an overview. It's a drop down, and it goes to overview, and it says it's a huge table of all coins. And these are, or at least where the cutoff is, where there's not much value or whatever, as far as like smaller projects or whatever that launched more younger. It tells what the liquidity is. As far as Pulsex right now, it says the liquidity is 77 million, 55 million for Inc., and so forth. But the sixth rank, as far as how this guy is organizing stuff, is P Maker. Like, it's Pulsex, Inc., Hex. I don't even see PLS. I don't know why that one isn't on there. But anyway, so Pulsex, Inc., Hex, P wrapped BTC. Does that have something to do with when they bridged across? Well, I guess these aren't bridged. These are the native fork additions. But P maker is 575 days, whereas Pdai is 575 days. 20 days later. I think that's really interesting. Or 575 versus 550. 555 for Pdai.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to continue to kind of research exactly how each maker contract interacts with each other. What the collateral max collateral deposit is, and I'm going to continue to look at these because there's obviously incentive to get maker working on Pulse Chain, right? That would be this would be a kind of like master kind of move if someone was able to just fork the entire Ethereum network and then they managed to get all of these extremely complex contracts that hold billions of dollars on Ethereum to just start working. And Richard did assume control over all these protocols, or at least a handful of them. There was a few that were exploited, but because ultimately he was able to just extract all of the governance tokens out of them on launch. So he does hold these positions, and it's not unreasonable to say, like, let's get him to get this to work. That would be amazing. I just don't see proof of that yet, and maybe that's why the believers get rewarded. I don't know.
Cool space. No animosity to anybody that holds any position, has a bag, has an opinion. Just move forward. This is a bull market. The most distraction that we can have, I think, is infighting. So if people want to speculate, they can speculate on anything, anywhere, anytime, in my opinion. So I don't
Oh,
really have a maxi position on any of this stuff.
yeah.
This is all speculative, and I just want people to have a good time while bull market is here.
That reminds me. I wanted to bring
Come
up
by R, mate.
uh,
We come by
my
R and again while we're
when
in the bull
when
market,
I
and then it becomes
I've
KVP.
never been outspoken about Pdai at all until this latest Richard Hart vote, which has obviously caught a lot of attention, and the 369 Milady proposal, and the only reason I did was because it just felt that there was a greater point to this. I'm sorry, I'm driving. I've lost my point. But oh yeah, so it's like I can't refute. There's things that you can and can't refute, right? So the hex maxis who are just like, oh, don't buy Pdai, it's a scam. They're just as bad as the guys like, oh, every single move in the maker contract happens to be Richard. So the idea is like, okay, I'm going to try to completely. I haven't seen anyone completely break down everything that's going on with maybe the opposite opinion. So if you're looking for all the answers, you're going to see all the answers, in your direction, and that's both ways probably. So I would like to see what happens if someone approaches this from, trying to prove that it isn't Richard, as opposed to someone who's trying to prove that it is Richard. And that's my whole perspective on it.
Yeah, the only person I've seen make any tweets about that is Dip Catcher, and he's catching shit. We're basically looking at contract and numbers, stuff he's tracking. So follow his tweets. And everybody in this room is drinking Kool-Aid, so me
I mean,
included.
that is true. That is true. I mean, look, I don't know what your opinion is on it, but Richard Hart used SAC funds to start buying Pulse Chain, so that's a treasury.
because you said like do your own research to make it. I bet you that nobody who made millions of Hex did any sort of research. It was all about backing Richard Hart. And it's like, yeah, I want to go where this guy's going, and so I'm not going to sell. That was
Oh,
basically the whole thesis.
absolutely, bro.
Guys, absolutely. Like the whole concept of T-share, the early hexagons didn't realize any of that. That was something that came after. Actually, everyone was staking for 10 years, not 15 years. So that whole 55555 narrative didn't come until a little bit later on. So yeah, it was just betting on the man rather than betting on the tech, I guess.
Yeah, fundamentally as well, they didn't understand like the inflation model and how, you know, how expensive gas fees could be. There was like so many things that were missed. That's why, like, I put a tweet out the other day. I do like the idea of Hex. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's a wonderful idea, and it really could change, you know, the way that finance works and stuff. But in the shorter term, I'm a lot more bullish on the new layer one and the DEX that buys and burns its own supply. Like, I'm way more bullish on them because it's the first cycle coin. I know they're all going to move sort of similarly, but Hex is the one with the gigantic inflation, and there's still a lot of guys that have massive Hex stakes coming out. One whale I know has got a stake coming out next year for 1 billion Hex. Just think about that, like 1 billion Hex, bro. Like
That's the trick that the bull market also pulls on us, right? Because you're talking about the inflation model and all of this buy and burn. In the bull market, man, like supply matters so much less than demand. So, you know, as a token founder, it's very, very easy to focus on supply because you can sort of control that part. So you can burn tokens, you can deflate your token, you can have all of this stuff, right? But in the bull market, if you have demand for your token, it doesn't matter how much inflation you have, how many sellers you have. I mean, we were spending like hours talking now about the PWBTC seller, like KR's favorite whale that is dumping on his head. But look at the chart, man. Like he's dumping millions of dollars, but the chart is just like shrugging it off his shoulders. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go up anyway. In the bull market, supply doesn't really matter. It's all about the demand, I think. So I think that even coins like Hex and Ink, especially, that are inflationary, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people who focus too much on the supply side of things and don't really estimate the amount of demand and what that demand can do. So I think that, yeah, that kind of makes me very bullish on stuff like BBC, Ink, Hex, things that have inflation that should not go up. I think those things are going to go up harder.
I think BBC is going to be the best performing asset on Pulsechain, man. I've been saying it for a long time because there's just so many things you can do with it.
BBC is great, man. Just look at the liquidity that BBC has. Like, it has some really, really cool liquidity webs going. And I love to be on the team of people who are much smarter than me and richer than me. That's basically where you want to be. And if you look at the liquidity webs that BBC has, if you own BBC, you basically are on Team Win. That's what I'm going to say about it.
Yeah, actually, I'll quickly announce this as well. There's going to be a bunch of new not P farms, a bunch of new pools for the BBC, so you'll be able to stake and earn random meme coins. We're actually going to be launching one ourselves, which is it's quite a funny meme, man. It's a very funny meme. I'm probably going to launch it. I might even do it tomorrow, actually. But a percentage of the supply will be locked or burned or whatever, and then some of it will be going out in liquidity, and then most of it you'll be able to farm by using the BBC token. But it's a very memeable token, and I think we can definitely make this one go viral. It will be very easy to make this one go viral. Alongside that as well, I've also been speaking to Maria, the atropa dev, and he's thinking about launching something on 9inch soon, where we're literally just talking about it yesterday. So we're just trying to figure out. Imagine a collaboration. So 9inch and atropa are the two biggest ecosystems on Pulsechain. Imagine those two come together and launch something like as a collaboration. That's going to be GG's, mate. All the brains of Maria and all the branding of 9inch. Like, man, we'll kill it.
I just woke up, bro. I literally just woke up. I heard you're launching, then I heard
9inch.
launch. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, huh? Launches? Okay, I'm all for that.
I mean, I'll leave it to you like this. 9inch is the perfect platform to make your plans come into reality if you can't use Pulsex, because there's only one guy who can dictate what happens on Pulsex. But 9inch is basically, I mean, it's very easy to say that, okay, what is 9inch? It's a meme condex. Okay, cool. But you can also view 9inch as a sort of alternate reality version of Pulsex that has the same mission, the same strategy as Pulsex, but uses different tactics. So we can move a lot faster. We can talk to projects. We don't have an SEC case. So we can have the same mission as Pulsex has, but we can basically implement stuff faster and experiment more. So I think going forward, I think you're going to see 9inch a bit less as a meme condex and more as a basically Pulsex, but more of a, how can I say, not sandbox, but you know what I mean? It's
Degen.
a bit more degen, a bit more fast pace. It's basically like if you're a big boat in the ocean, right? You're the Titanic or whatever, you want to change direction. It's going to take a long time for you to steer. But 9inch being smaller and more degen, we can move much faster. So yeah, it's going to be a cool it's going to be a cool build run, guys.
Let's not beat around the bush as well. I mean, Pulsex, as good of a product as it is quite limited what you can do on there. 9inch has got 20 plus features more than Pulsex. I mean, for a start, we've got the V3 liquidity. You've got the DCA tool. You've got the launch pad. We've got extra farms. We're actually doing P farms on there, so you can do like Pdai farming and stuff, which obviously we're in a Pdai space, so it makes sense to talk about that a little bit. But I believe there's something like 200% APY that you can make by providing liquidity for Pdai, which is insane. What else we got?
Are you guys working on an aggregator? I thought I heard you guys say you were going to get an aggregator natively through 9inch.
Yeah, at some point soon we will be doing that. I mean, the code exists. It's not going to be hard to implement it, but with that's I think that's like next on the roadmap actually. Oh no, wait, no. There's one more thing we're bringing out in the next few days. Should we talk about that, K9, or should we leave it and just announce it when it's ready?
I think when it's ready.
Okay, yeah. So there's one more thing we're going to bring out first, and then after that, I think we're going to start working on the aggregator. The whole idea for 9inch was to be the one-stop shop for everything Pulsechain related. And once we have the aggregator, it's just going to make it so much easier for the users. They only have to go to one website and they can trade pairs that we don't even have as liquidity on 9inch. And there will still be like a small fee similar to like GoPulse or PyTS. And all of that fee will just go to buy and burn 9inch and BBC. So we work in the same way.
But the difference, we don't have any fee. If we make an aggregator, there's not going to be a fee. Like we're not going to. I heard that
that's debatable. I think we're gonna have an argument about that. We're gonna have an argument about that because, like, I think if we have an aggregator, we should charge a small fee, and all of the aggregators charge a fee. We should charge a small fee and just use all of it to buy and burn BBC or 9inch or both. Like, we should charge a small fee for sure, because otherwise, what's the
all
point?
to burn BBC.
I would say honestly, yeah, burn BBC. That's the one we want to, because 9inch already has a lot of buy and burn.
Racist right now.
9inch already has a lot of natural buy and burn. We just launched. Some of you guys in the listeners might not know, but we just launched a merge on the website. So we basically revamped the entire website. So the user experience is 100 times better now. And with that, we've kind of merged the V2 and V3 liquidity pages. And now one of the best features on Pulsechain right now is you can go onto our liquidity page and you can sort it by amount of fees generated in one day, like the APR on the fees generated per day. That is such a game changer for liquidity providers, because a lot of guys, they just play the liquidity game. They want to rotate in and out of different positions, just go where the money is. So you can literally look at the volume. You can sort it by how much fees are going out, how much LP is provided. In general, it's sick, man. It's sick. Like, if you like, I don't want to talk down other projects, but I'm telling you, 9inch is by far the best user experience DEX, possibly even in the world. Honestly, it's possible, but definitely on Pulsechain without a shadow of a doubt. It's miles better than Pulsex. It's a million miles better than 9mm. So yeah, I'm sorry. I know some of you guys are like maxis on those, but if you actually go and use it and see how good the UI is on 9inch right now, it's so good. And we're just continuously building more and more and more stuff. We've done like 25 plus updates to 9inch in the year or so we've been out just over a year now. So yeah. And our volumes just skyrocketed as well. We went from doing like 500K of volume a day, between 500 and like 4 million. Between 500 and a million to doing like between 4 and 7 million a day consistently now for like weeks. And a lot of that is down to like the PRAP BTC, the Pdai, and all of that, which is great. But it just basically all of that volume is going to buy and burn 9-inch and BBC. And 9-inch supply is 142x less than Pulsex. So yeah. And also, it's a lower price as well. So more of the supply is going to get bought and burned quicker, I think. So anyway, shell over. I might as well throw it out. It's a 9-inch space. We literally haven't even mentioned it. So thought I'd just throw that out there for anyone who's not used it yet.
True.
Instead of
And one more thing, we have passed 2 audits, and the Pentagon has failed 7. So just saying.
So you say one-stop shop. I'm wondering if we're gonna get some lending, maybe.
Oh, you're a DJ. You're a DJ, bro.
I'm telling you that 9-inch is
betting
going to be
and
9-inch is going to focus much more about liquidity web bonding and incentivize liquidity through farming than adding like completely new features like lending. Like we're not going to be like a Fox or like an Aave or something like this. That's not really what we're going to do from now on. What we're going to do is we're going to really hatch on to Richard's vision of what Pulsechain is supposed to be, and we're going to basically turbocharge it with farms, staking, and liquidity bonding, and especially cooperation between like big liquidity providers and projects on the chain. And I'm not talking about tanging.
The issue, the issue with the lending side is it's a completely new contract, right? So I've tried to use I can't remember if it's Fox or Famous, whichever one it is that those guys. Oh, Fiat. Sorry, yeah, Fiat. I tried to use it a couple of times, and almost every time I tried to use it, there was like no liquidity available. And that's a protocol that actually does have, a decent amount of users. It's not like no one's using it. It's just all the liquidity is kind of taken up. So you kind of have to race. So you have to wait for someone to exit a position and then go in. We already have like $17 million of liquidity on 9-inch with the branding that we currently have. I don't want to sacrifice any of that so that people can go wreck themselves with lending. But the conversation, we have had a conversation about it in the past. It's just not a priority. But when we've conquered everything else, maybe that's like the last domino to fall. I don't know. But right now, we just want to make the best DeFi experience, DEX, and Launchpad and all of that stuff, and that we can right now.
By the way, as this is a Pdai kind of themed chat, I'm looking at the volume on these Pdai charts, and it looks like the volume, at least, is higher than it's ever been. Just these few, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 hours. So I think that this is the point in Pdai where people are most indecisive. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Should I take my profits, or should I actually use this moment to pack my bags? If you look at the volume and the charts in the past 6 to 8 hours, it's very interesting.
This is the thing, guys. I think I'm playing the game correctly. I make like maybe 5 to 10 moves in crypto a month maximum, sometimes 0. And I feel like when you've already got your portfolio in a place, it's good to just not get distracted by things and like try and play the ratio game of like, oh, if I rotate, like, so I seen one the other day, today even, someone was like, oh, Pulsex looks a little toppy versus Pulse. And I'm like, I'm not even playing the game, man. I'm not, because if you do, say, imagine that Pulsex just suddenly runs against Pulse, then you've just lost a huge position, right? So I basically packed my bags a while ago. The only real move that I did this month was I bought Wrap BTC. You guys should, obviously I'm not an expert, but I'm just saying you should pack your bags and then just be patient, and especially at this stage of the market where we've just started going up. You start playing ratio games now, you are risking getting wrecked every time. Yeah, maybe you could make a little extra money, but every time you do it, you're taking a huge gamble. So I personally wouldn't. So guys, you wake up tomorrow morning, Pdai has pegged. What do you do? Let's go around the room, because I'll tell you guys what I would do. I would rotate immediately out, probably into Pulse and Pulsex for now, or I'd just trade it for a stable coin, like an actual stable coin, before I make a decision.